Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of Sharing My Life. And today I'm going to share with you all how I started smoking when I was 14. Yes, 14. And how I gave up smoking when I was about 42. So that's a good 27 years that I smoked for. I can't even believe it myself. And I'm sure some of you would be quite shocked that I even was a smoker. And it's what I'm going to share with you today. And so that was a good 27 years, that I smoked is what I'm saying. And the importance and the lesson, not lesson, the takeaway that I've got for myself and what I want to share with you all is that the reason that I continued smoking through my life from the time I was a young girl to my teens to growing years and to right up to the age of 42 when I stopped was the context. It was what determined why I smoked and why I finally gave up. And so when I changed my context around smoking, I actually was able to give it up. So as a young girl, when I was 14, I remember growing up, the context for me at that time was fun and exciting, and it was daring, and you're doing it with friends. I remember as teenagers, there was about 6, 7 of us in our building. And my grandmother was the only one at home because all our parents used to work. So we would tiptoe up to the terrace of our building. We had a second two-story building. And in India, you can, by the way, buy cigarettes, like 1 or 2 cigarettes at a time. And hello, hi, Nicola. Hey, Nicola and Kelly. Hello. And Maya and Rachel. Hello. Okay, so in India, you can buy cigarettes, 1 or 2 cigarettes at a time from what do you call a local pan bidi shop for 10 paisa. So we would buy 1 or 2 cigarettes, go up to the top of the terrace. And I remember my very first drag, you take this drag and there's 5, 6 of us sitting there and you cough and splutter because the body's natural reaction to poison is to reject it. So you cough and splutter. But my context around smoking at that time was fun and excitement and daring, and you're with friends. So mind over matter, basically. And your mind trains your body to accept that poison, and you slowly get over. You take another puff and you cough and splutter a little, but because you're with friends, mind wins over matter, and slowly your body gets used to it. And that's how I started smoking. 14, 15. By about 22, I used to smoke 1 or 2 cigarettes a day, like full cigarettes a day on a regular basis. And then by about, I remember 22, 23, going down to a local park with my girlfriend. I'm not going to give you her name, and she might be listening. And we used to buy a packet of banana chips and bunk church. We used to not go to church. I didn't like going to mass. I was very naughty. And we used to tell our moms we were going to church, but we'd go down to a local park with a couple of cigarettes each, buy a packet of banana chips, have a fag. And again, my context was fun and exciting and daring and spending time with my girlfriend. And then we would go back after an hour and make sure, hope that our mums wouldn't ask us about what the sermon was about. And we were 21, 22. So you can imagine how we were with our parents, even at that age. Anyway, I got married. So the context is remaining, fun and exciting. I come back to Australia after I got married. And right from the beginning, my marriage wasn't the best. So I had challenges in my marriage. Then I moved from Sydney to Brisbane, so I didn't have too much support around me. I also had a big business and I had kids. So life was pretty not working for me in many ways. And so my context around my smoking then became, I needed to relax. It was stress relief. I've written down a few things here. It was basically survival. I needed it to, take time out to have a think. If I had a fight with my husband, how am I going to deal with this? I go out and have a cigarette or have a glass of wine. It was all about survival. I need my cigarettes to deal with my life. That was my context. By about, in my early 30s, when I was about 34, my son Daniel was about 7 and Alicia was about 10. And by the way, if you go back to the 60s, smoking in the 60s, the whole context as a society in the 60s, smoking was fashionable. And when we grew up in India, it was not bad, but it was not good, but it wasn't bad either. Cigarette packets in India, the imported packets, Marlboro was red in color. They were very smart looking. Rothmans was white with blue and gold. And then there was Benson and Hedges, which was gold, very smart looking packets. So it wasn't considered a bad thing to smoke, as bad. In the early 90s, when my kids were about 10 and 7, society and governments as a whole have realized that, this has done too much damage, and there was so much lung cancer, and there still is. And right now, cigarette smoking is you're considered almost a leper if you're a smoker, unfortunately. But that's how, well, fortunately and unfortunately for those that smoke. But so packets today have all these horrible pictures of lungs oozing with tar. And so my kids would see these pictures, and my son used to take my packets and crush them when I wasn't looking and put them in the bin. So I was starting to realize that I was being really irresponsible, and I wanted to give it up. But my context that time was that I had around smoking was that, it's difficult. Nicotine is addictive, and I'm addicted. I'm an addict. And so all the reasons for my smoking was outside of me. Nicotine was addictive. It was a substance that I was addicted to. I didn't have that, I could give it up myself. So I did chewing gum. I went and got nicotine chewing gum, and I got Zantac, and I did alpha therapy, and I did a whole lot of things that thought I could help me give it up. But none of them helped me. None of them helped me. And I was about 38 when I suddenly started to dawn on me that, and by the way, my marriage problems were really escalating at that time, and I go and fall pregnant. I was 38 when I was pregnant with Damien. And at that point I said, I really need cigarettes to survive. I'm going to get a little bit emotional over here, but it was a time in my life which was very difficult for me, 38 to about 42. And so I smoked. I really smoked, and I didn't think that I could give it up. And because I tried all this stuff and nothing worked. And so I decided by that time, my context was now that I was weak-willed. And I had very low self-esteem as well, because whatever I was dealing with. I was so weak-willed, and I had such low self-esteem that I even smoked a little bit here and there when I was pregnant. Pretty shocking. I'm going to be really straight and real with you, because I'm not here to, tell you stuff to look good. I'm here to share my life with you. And and so I smoked even when I was pregnant. Not a lot, but I did smoke a little, because I was aware of the consequences of my child and of having a baby in me. And then I was about 42, and I went to Sydney for a trip, and I was sitting in a cafe, and this friend of mine who I hadn't seen in years, he had come from Japan, and he happened to be walking past, and he said, we just accidentally sat down with me at the coffee. We were just happy to catch up with each other. It was totally absurd. And he says to me, you know what, Carol, I stopped smoking. And I said, really? And I hadn't even, at that point, I wasn't even wanting to stop, because I thought that I needed smoking. I needed cigarettes to live my life. That was how I was going to deal, because I remember I was dealing with a lot of stuff in my life. So I wasn't even, stopping smoking wasn't even on the radar. And he said to me, I've stopped smoking. So what did you do? Just in conversation. He said, I read this book called The Easy Way to Stop Smoking by Alan Carr. And I said, really? He says, yeah, get it. It's only $14.95. Read it. And, you might not stop. You might stop. So I did. When I came back to Brisbane that week, I went and bought the book. And I started reading the book. And from the start of the book to the end of the book, all he does is tell you about your habit. And he's very slowly and consistently and repetitively changing your whole context around smoking. And from having a really disempowering context about smoking and about yourself, he flips it around to completely something totally different. And so you start to believe that you're not weak-willed. One of the takeaways, I'll tell you one of the things he changed for me is, instead of believing that I was weak-willed because I couldn't give it up, he says, as a smoker, because you know that it's the worst thing for you, it's killing you, it's eating you up inside, you could die, you're being irresponsible, but you still go and you take a cigarette and you go and smoke. You can't be weak-willed. You know you're going to die and you're still having a cigarette. You are strong-willed. So he changes your whole context around smoking. And by the time and by the way, he keeps telling you through the book, don't give up smoking. Just continue reading. I don't want you to give up smoking. I want you to just read this and understand your habit. And by the time I ended the book, it was about 2 months later, I took my packet and I actually very dramatically opened the big garbage bin over here and I chucked my packet into the bin. I said, that's it. I'm not going to smoke. And I stopped smoking for about 2 weeks. And then I was on it again. But I didn't feel guilty, because he doesn't make you feel guilty through that book. His book is just about educating you about context, your context about smoking. And I just educate myself about, and so he kind of really takes you from your whole journey of smoking, and you get to see that, you're not weak-willed, you're strong-willed. And by the time I read the book a second time, halfway through the book, I was ready and I just gave it up. And that was how I gave up smoking at the age of 42. It's been 10 years. It was the 26th of January 26th of January 2008. It's been 10 years since I've stopped smoking. I haven't had a single cigarette. And right through the book, he'll tell you one puff and you'll be on it again. It was probably one of the single most biggest achievements of my life. The first most biggest achievement is bringing my mom here and sending her home, bringing her here on a wheelchair and sending her home walking. And the stopping smoking is the second biggest achievement of my life. And if you're ever smoking and you want to give it up, go read that book. It's one of the best books. And also, I guess the takeaway for me from this journey of my smoking is that if you change your context around anything in life where you're stuck, you can change, your actions will change, and therefore your life changes. So change your context and you can change your life. And you can create a context that you want that will actually have you take new actions in your life. So thank you for listening. And let's see, there's so many people over here. Gayatri and Maya and Muni and Mariah, and Maurice and Jan and Evelyn. Hello, darling Evelyn and Angela. Wow, there's so many people. I'm so moved to see so many people listening here on this live video of mine. So yeah, it's biggest achievement of my life to stop smoking. And it's all stuff that mind over matter. So and by the way, nicotine, one of the things in the books is that nicotine addiction is only 10%. The rest is mind over matter. It's context. It's what you've decided about smoking. So we think that it's nicotine and we give away our power to nicotine, but we have the power. We hold 90% of the power of that habit. So 10% is nicotine addiction, substance addiction, and 90% is what you think about it, the context that you have around your habit. And that would go for anything in our lives. So thank you so much for listening. And I'll see you next week. I'm so excited to see you all here. Thank you. Bye-bye.